Hello folks, this is fake. Before YouTube punches me in the face, this is fake, okay? Okay, acknowledge it, thank you, okay. Hello folks, and welcome to my little cosplay channel, telekineticManiac. My name is Mad Dog, and today I'm going to show you the power of painting your cosplays. And because apparently I'm just giving away like all of my little secrets, I'm also gonna show you what I found to be the most brain dead trick to take your cosplays to the next level. And yes, I know I'm talking about paint, which I know like a lot of sewers are afraid of and non-crafters are afraid of, and just like, you know, like a lot of people seem to be a little bit afraid of paint because like they're not painters and what if it looks horrible? But be not afraid, because paint is awesome and wonderful and powerful and much easier to use than like so many people seem to think. And also because this one tip truly is like so brain dead, like anyone can do it, folks. Anyway, let's jump into it, but this time, throwing together a last minute Halloween costume vlog style. Timestamps are in the description if you want to skip around. Alright, welcome back everybody. I hope you just got a better intro from future me because it's 10:45 on a Saturday night. And I've had a very long day. I'm actually going to be working on my Halloween costume today. I will be cosplaying as Six from Little Nightmares because I recently got very obsessed with that game. I wanted to play it for so long, and I recently got a PS5 and I found it for cheap on PS4, which you can play on the PS5, so I'm really excited about it. This is a weird costume for me because I actually bought this costume and I'm gonna do some quick alterations on it tonight. I think that's all I'm gonna do tonight. But the main thing that I wanted to show you with this costume is I am going to be painting it to hell and back because I want to show you the power of paint in cosplay. Paint is essential to prop and armor making because you need that paint job to actually make it look like a finished piece. Like otherwise it's just gonna look like foam or clay or like epoxy or resin or like whatever the hell you used. Warbler, I didn't even mention Warbler, even though I use a ton of Warbler. But you're gonna need that paint job or it's just gonna look like raw material. But paint can often be overlooked on fabric because you're so focused on the actual construction of the garment. You often forget about those like finishing details, like adding leathering and stuff. So today I'm gonna be showing you the power of paint. It's awesome. You can use paint on most fabrics. It works best, I'd say, on most woven fabrics with the exception of sheer fabrics. You can definitely use it on knit fabrics, but you're probably gonna need to do some testing to make sure it doesn't like, when the knit stretches, it doesn't like crack and whatnot. Like you might need to use a specific type of paint, like specific fabric paints, or you may need to layer it up a lot. But right now we have a woven polyester because I bought this thing on Amazon, so it's got to be 100% plastic. Like there's no way it's not. So I'm gonna be painting on woven polyester. So I can just use acrylic paint, and it's gonna go from just this kind of yellow color it is now to hopefully something very cool and interesting. You can tell how tired I am. I'm sorry. It really is almost 11 p.m. I have been up all day. I'm sorry, but so. Yeah, right now I'm gonna do some alterations on it. This is gigantic on me. Essentially when I buy garments in general, not just costumes, if it has sleeves, I buy up a couple sizes because my arms are big. I don't even think my arms are that big, but my arms never fit in garments, and then the waist is like far too big, and usually the sleeves are too small when I like buy up a couple sizes. So I bought up a couple sizes and the sleeves are far too small and the waist is far too big. So I need to take it in a little bit. but after I do that, and let's be real, I'm gonna do a pretty mediocre job on that because this is not gonna be an award-winning costume. This is going to be a cosplay I wear for a Halloween party. Then we'll be moving on to the paint. So I think I got a good 2 hours of work in me tonight. Hopefully I'll get all the alterations done by then. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to start some painting stuff. And I got 2 hours to work tomorrow. And so I got 4 hours to make this thing right here go to hopefully something kind of spooky and weathered and painted and stuff. So anyway, the power of paint, let's go.
Painting will start in just a moment, but here's a real quick overview of what I did for my alterations first. I essentially ripped out the side seams in the lining, which gave me access to the fashion fabric. Then I measured out and drew in some darts and side seam adjustments and sewed right along those lines. That's literally it. Like, I didn't even sew the lining back up because no one's gonna see it. If anyone wants me to talk about basic alteration techniques for store-bought costumes in an upcoming video, let me know in the comments. But until that theoretical video happens, we are done with that because this is a painting video.
Alrighty, hello everyone, welcome back. Oh my god, it is 10:50. It was 10:50 on Sunday. I just finished my stream, prepping some stuff that I needed to just prep for tomorrow. I'm still in my makeup because this is dumb. I told myself if I got out of my makeup and I took a shower and like got rid of the post wig hair and whatever from the stream, I was like, you know that you're immediately jumping into bed and you need to heckin' paint a cosplay. So I do not have my makeup off yet. I'm sure it looks even bolder than it usually does in the dark. Trust me, the overhead lighting was terrible, so just deal with it. I'm doing laundry, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. I'm sorry about many things, okay? But we are back. We're gonna continue with my cosplay today, with my 6 cosplay, and we're actually going to be moving on to the painting part. I'm giving myself 2 hours before I call it, and I take a shower and go to bed because I got a really busy morning tomorrow. I'm almost tempted to just do 1 hour tonight and then try to sneak in another hour some other time because yeah, we're gonna get started. We're gonna see how far this goes. I'm gonna hope for a miracle, hope for just absolute bonkers progress. But I did want to say real quick, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm just going to be going right into painting this. I've done a lot of weathering in my day, so I'm just going for it. I'm gonna be like essentially doing tests as I go, seeing what I like and doing more of that as I go. But I would recommend to anybody who is working on like learning how to paint the way that they would like to paint on cosplay, trying to find techniques that you enjoy or like what works on a specific material, I recommend doing a bunch of tests before sitting down and doing your paint job. Paint is wonderful. Paint can make a cosplay, but it can also break a cosplay. Like if you do a mediocre paint job that you're just not happy with, you sure aren't gonna be happy with it. Like it's just, you're gonna be like, wow, this looks bad. Yeah, that's laundry. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Alrighty, if I missed anything, future Mad Dog, who hopefully did an intro, will fill you in here. Beats me. But yeah, see you soon.
So, like I said, here I am doing some weathering, some incredibly basic weathering, where I sponge on layers of watered down black and brown acrylic paint. And it's already changed the feel of my entire costume. It's gone from a plain yellow raincoat to something really unclean, something that's been through a lot of shit, maybe literally, and with almost no effort at all. I've achieved the vibe I wanted with the absolute bare bones basics, so let's take stock in the power of those basics. All you really need for painting is some paintbrushes and sponges, stuff to put paint and water in and whatnot, and of course, paint. For these materials you can always get nice little insta-worthy palettes and trays and whatever, but solo cups, paper plates, and paper towels will do just fine. You can also get really nice paintbrushes and sponges, and if you get really into painting, you may want to invest in those down the line. Or better yet, invest in an airbrush, wink wink, nudge nudge, say no more, say no more. But if you're just starting out and or you're on a budget, $1 brushes and sponges will work just fine. Although pro tip, if you can't find sponges in your hour of need, because those can just be harder to find if you only frequent places like Joann's and not more dedicated art supply stores like Blick, you can always get a large foam brush and rip the handle off. Even pro tip, if you want it to have a little more texture, like the sea sponges I'm using here, just rip it or cut some pieces out of the foam. It's a really, really budget-friendly option that may someday help you in a pinch. I don't know, you never know.
Alrighty, hello everyone, we are back to this very sus lighting. It is 12:30, so it's both earlier than I want, but also not as early as I wanted. I was really hoping to be done here at like 12, but I've done a lot for today. I've hung my thing up to dry because essentially what I did for this was I did a lot of watering down of my paint to try and get like a little bit of a gradient going on, like a little bit of an ombre effect
for all of the like dirt and oil that is on 6's coat. So it's hanging up to dry. I really do like watering down my paints when it comes to weathering if I'm not using something like tea dyeing and coffee dyeing or whatever, because you can get like a lot of different layers and have it look cool. But the thing about layers is you do have to layer them. You have to do like a little bit at a time here and there, so it's a work in progress. So I got layer 1 on. I'm definitely gonna have to try and find some more time this week to work on it, but hopefully it looks good. The only other thing about watering down paint is when you water it down, you don't know exactly how it's gonna dry, so it's always a balancing act because you don't want to essentially have the paint go on too thick the first time. If it goes on too thin, you can always add another layer, but if it goes on too thick, you are stuck with it. So hopefully it dries okay. I think it's gonna dry a lot lighter than I want because this fabric, like, we'll see how it is tomorrow. Hopefully I can squeak in an hour tomorrow evening. I have a very busy day tomorrow, so like we'll see when that happens. But yeah, alrighty, I'll see you tomorrow. So no more vlog check-ins because I really was squeaking in time wherever I possibly could and I didn't want to waste any of it. But here it is, what you've been waiting for, the most brain-dead trick that you can use to take your cosplays to the next level. And that is weather your seams. That's literally it. Just go over every little seam on your costume with paint. It genuinely makes a difference. Of course, bear in mind that the less paint you use, the more subtle and realistic the weathering will be. And the more paint you use, the more cartoony and stylized your costume will end up looking. But no matter the look you are going for, just do it. Just put paint in your seams. And don't just take my word for it. Let's break down why this works. Oftentimes, flat pieces of a costume, like pieces with literal flat planes of untextured fabric, foam, Worbla, whatever you're using, or even pieces that are more sculptural but are one solid color, or are painted with one solid color, can appear very flat, especially in photos. While there are naturally highlights and shadows on any surface due to how light sources hit that surface, cameras can compress that contrast down to the point where it's almost nothing. Generally speaking, you can't rely on being able to control the natural contrast in your costume by adjusting the lighting you happen to be in while in your costume. So instead, you can fake that contrast by painting in fake highlights and shadows, or even just the shadows. You see where I'm going with this? This idea of artificial painted light sources works in so many different types of builds, and to an extent you probably are aware of this idea already. Have you ever heard somebody talk about adding grit where it would naturally appear in armor and prop builds? Because where that grit also tends to build up tends to be the parts of a costume that would naturally have some shadow. Any point where two planes join in your costume and aren't like perfectly flat will create a seam, which in turn will probably create some natural contrast. So exaggerate your shadows, exaggerate the lows in this contrast to add depth back into your pieces. Or in basic brain-dead bitch terms, weather your seams. And this doesn't go for just armor and props. While often overlooked, this technique works on fabric as well, where there are literal seams in your garments. Although I do want to take a second to warn you that fabric seams can be slightly different than armor and props. I'd recommend 1, only weathering your seams if your fabric does not already have a surface that shows off highs and lows. For example, painting satin probably wouldn't be a spectacular idea, because it has such a shiny quality to it that it already shows off its natural highs and lows like real well. And 2, while with armor you almost always want to go for the darker weathering at the seams to create shadows. On fabric, you may opt for highlights there instead to go for a threadbare look. I have shadows here at my seams on my 6 cosplay that I'm working on because this jacket would just be so dirty, so filthy, that grit would just gather in the seams and rot there. But if the jacket wasn't dirty or lacking contrast and had actually been worn and washed just like so many times, the seam lines would be pale from dye slowly being removed over the years, right where the threads are pulled at, over and over again in the wash. If you've ever worn a pair of jeans until they've fallen apart, or honestly, even if you like buy pre-weathered jeans, you should know exactly what I'm talking about and why this might be the better option for a specific rundown costume. Even still, this requires weathering your seams, just in a little different of a way. So weather your seams. And for the record, to create my shadows on this jacket, I'm using a darker browner yellow paint here. I'm not just using more watered down black paint or yellow paint with black mixed in, because that would create a really dark and gray toned, or in some cases probably green toned shadows. And that's just not the look I was going for. So mixing brown with yellow was ideal for me. If color theory is something you know a bit about or you have a natural aptitude for, this should make sense to you already. But if it doesn't and you don't want to take the time to like search for some videos and learn some theory, all you need to remember to do is to do test before painting on your final fabric. Literally just try mixing little bits of different colors together and different ratios until you get the color that looks right to you. Then of course mix up more of that and use it. Man, this sure has dripped. Wow, all right. Folks, there you have it. Paint is an extremely powerful medium that can absolutely take your cosplay to the next level. Personally, I would recommend just painting a ton. Just test it out on every little thing to see if it could add to the look, to see if it could add to the vibe that you're going for, and then just go to town if it does. Obviously, I can't tell you what style of painting technique might work perfectly for your cosplay, but basic trial and error can really help yield the look that you're going for. And hey, I mean, if you really want it, I can do some more painting demonstrations in the future. Just let me know in the comments if you're interested. But yeah, just paint your foams, paint your thermoplastics, paint your fabrics, and paint your metals. I'm sorry, can we just paint your metals, everyone? Yeah, I know, I too can hear the groans of every dude bro who has never worked with metal a day in his life, but has at one point binged Man-at-Arms, grumbling about like patinas and proper finishes. And you know what? While those techniques are great, I don't trust the general cosplay public to wear safety glasses, let alone do chemical finishes on metal. So just paint your metal, like just bust out your acrylic paints and go paint your metal. Tangent aside, paint holds power. Use that to your advantage. And that's for real it for this week's video, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and you know, if you like this, be sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe, dumb little bell, share with your friends, you know, like all that stuff, because all those actions that you can take are actually extremely powerful to me in helping me bring this little channel back to life. If you'd like to see some more cosplay content, do check out the rest of my channel, and especially check out last week's video where I made a heckin' 6-foot anime sword for my Guts cosplay from Berserk. It was so much fun to make that prop, so if you've ever had any thought about making an oversized prop, like, do check that out. And of course, tune in next week to see something totally different, but still cosplay related. Until next time, I will see you on the con floor.